Welcome to Sensible Prepper. Yeah, we're doing something. This ought to be an interesting day today. Welcome to Sensible Prepper Live, Prepper School, Volume 26. We're doing a Q&A today. We just decided to do something a little different. We've done one before.
It's all about you guys today.
Well, it is. And it's important for you guys to have questions answered, and we will try to answer those questions. No guarantees. But great to have you guys with us today. Also, we appreciate Robbie Wheaton from WheatonArms.com. Also, he has the Wheaton Arms YouTube channel.
Yep.
Or Robbie Wheaton YouTube channel. You can find it either way.
One and the same. Easy to search.
That's right. Robbie was a gunsmith for over 20 years, and he has a really unique perspective on firearms. And so it's really good. There's a lot of cool things he's doing over there. And also his regular business, which is Wheaton Arms, they do a great I'm going to have a tough time today, guys. I'll tell you right now, I am struggling. I'm on the struggle bus. He does a lot of great Glock aftermarket parts. In fact, the flat face trigger is one of the best out there on the market. It is phenomenal. But we really appreciate Robbie for being here. He's also a crazy prepper like we are. Then we appreciate Sarah Mack. She's over and she will be taking your questions. And so when you can go ahead and start putting questions down at any time, and then we'll just get right to them. But also we thank Sportsman's Guide, and you get a $20 off every $100 or more purchase using Sootch. No 00, just Sootch. And it's just a great resource.
Yep. And check out their Buyers Club as well. Their Buyers Club, you'll get additional savings as well as free shipping on any order over $49.
And we use it a lot. Yep. In fact, I'm getting ready to do something. I'm doing this one video. It's about the BioLite. It's a solar panel that charges a station, and you can daisy chain lights to it. Three different lights.
Yeah.
It is really cool. And it's simple. It's so simple. They're using them down in Africa, but with power outages of any sort, it's just a really great alternative. So I got that on Sportsman's Guide, but I'm getting ready to do a full review. The only reason I've got everything done. I've just got to do a couple of night shots. Mm-hmm. So that is coming up on the Sensible Prepper channel. Also, next week, we will not be here. We're going to be on the Sootch channel next week, and we're going to be talking about 1911s. But I wanted to give you guys a heads up. In fact, we were going to do it this week, and I thought I didn't tell my guys, that we were going to be there. So I didn't want you guys to show up and go, what the heck? So we will be on the Sootch channel next week, same time, same bat channel.
That's right.
Same baddie channel. And we're going to be talking about 1911s. So with that being said, when you guys start asking questions, we'll get started. But one of the things that we're looking at right now here in South Carolina, they put out a big warning. We talked about this last week. They're talking about brownouts and possible blackouts, power outages coming up in the summer. And I think there's a coal shortage. Is that right?
That's correct. It's not necessarily just a coal shortage, but you've got the coal shortage. Plus, there's a lot more restrictions on mining, which has made it more difficult to actually produce the coal, get the coal out of the ground, and get it to the power plants to be able to produce power. So, most of our power plants here are either nuclear or natural gas fired. So we won't really see some of that here, but a lot of our power from South Carolina is sent out to other states to help support the power grids in other states because we have an excess of power. And with all of the people moving into South Carolina, we had like 70,000 people move into just Greenville County alone last year from other states. And that puts a strain on our power grid as well, on top of the power that we send out to other states. So there's a good chance that we could see, widespread brownouts even here in South Carolina this year, which is one of the reasons why I'm looking at a lot of different solar power options for my deep freezers, because all of our food supplies that we're putting back over the summer with our vegetables and our meats and everything, I don't want to lose that. So we're really looking hard at some different solar options, and we're going to be doing some reviews on the solar options that I decide to use for our deep freezers to maintain those so we don't lose our food supply over the summer and through the winter.
Yeah, so it's really smart to go ahead. And guys, obviously there's a lot going on. And of course, I think we're going to be seeing some pushes for gun control. We're seeing a whole lot of crazy people out there doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, saw some stuff last week where JSD Supply got a cease and desist order from the ATF. I guess they were selling 80% Glock frames and some other stuff, parts and accessories. they got a cease and desist letter from the ATF last week for the frames that they were selling.
Right. And so there's a lot going on out there, guys, in on a lot of fronts. So now it's really time to get your preps in order. Okay, we got some questions.
Joe Texas asked question: how could an EMP affect red dot and hollow optics?
If it has computer board, which most of them do, it could affect them. That's one of the reasons why I really like to have an etched reticle on my red dot, or some sort of retched reticle or reticle. Retched reticle. I mean, I love retched reticles. Maybe those are impervious, but that could possibly be. Now, the one thing about EMPs, and we were talking a little bit about this last week, is it's theoretical. There have been some things that have happened, but they don't really know because we haven't had any kind of EMP event, whether it's solar or nuclear. Now we did have a solar flare back in the 1800s that burned up all the telegraph lines, and there are things like that. So they have done some testing, and it's a definite danger.
Well, I tell you, one of the things that a lot of people don't consider, a lot of our lights that we've switched to now are LEDs. Well, LEDs they've got a little computer chip in there, computer board on it. Yeah, EMP could wipe out all of your LED lighting. Yeah,
so you could have, that's interesting. Yeah. So you could have solar backup, you could have everything and still lose it.
That's right. And that's one of those things that a lot of people don't think about. With your LED lights, they're like, oh, I've got LED lights, they're great. Well, they're computer chip powered. So if we have a EMP or a big solar flare, it could wipe out all of your LED lighting at once. Just boom, gone.
So it'd probably be good to have some kind of backup
incandescent
to that.
Yep.
Or you can get a Faraday bag and put some of those solar lights in there and have it locked down. Yep. And that's one of the options is solar lighting. The ones you use out in your yard, even bring them inside. Okay.
Ginger Ale Bear asks, anyone going to prepper camp /con this year?
In fact, I was invited to speak up there this year, but I think that we're going to be at NRA during that time, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and but that is one of the best events I've done. I've been to a number of the that Jan up at Carolina Readiness. I know she's a big supporter of that, and that's a great resource. And I think Skinny Medic, Dietrich and Candace, they're going to be there. So that's going to be a good time. I think Scott Hunt from Engineer 775, and there's a lot of people. It's a really great resource.
James Smith asks, what's everyone's best guess on when it'll be very noticeable empty shelves and super food shortages? 1 month? ?
Well, we're already seeing huge holes in the supply chain. So, nobody can really guess. I mean, maybe some people that are into all the transportation, but honestly, I mean, we're already starting to see it. It's just going to continue possibly to get worse.
And I agree with that 100%. You look at, one of the big things right now is baby formula, huge shortage on that. Canned goods, you've seen shortages on canned goods. You see shortages on your meats from the meat packers, where they've cut their prices on beef. The packers themselves that purchase the beef, the cattle, they've cut the prices on what they're paying the farmers to the point that the farmers aren't even selling their beef to the meat packing plants right now because the prices have been cut so low.
Well, and then gas prices are going to make the prices more expensive on its own, regardless of supply and demand. So we're really looking at kind of a perfect storm kind of situation because there's a lot of factors.
Kim Min asked Robbie, what dual fuel generator should I buy? I'm concerned about losing the food in my fridges and freezers. Solar is out of my financial range.
I'm not sure as far as dual fuel. I've only really been looking at the solar options for mine, and the solar options that I've been looking at, they're around $1,500 per. So I'll have to get 2 units for my 2 deep freezers, but they're about $1,500 per unit for each deep freezer. And I'm still looking at some different options, and dual fuel may be one of the options that I consider as well. But right now, I don't have an answer for that.
There are some options out there where you can go with propane or solar, and they're fairly reasonable. They're generators to know that, to know the wattage you need to be able to run that.
Right.
I mean, that's definitely a situation. But I think propane is one thing that you can store safely. So that is one of the options that we look at. We have solar generators and gas generators, but we're really looking at getting a propane dual fuel. And so look, and you can even get on Lowe's, Home Depot. I think Mike over at Mr. Guns and Gear, he did a review on one generator that was dual fuel that had propane. So I think, to me, propane is the way to go because, again, you can buy those propane tanks, store them up, and they're safe to store. Gasoline is not so much.
And my only concern with going with a fossil fuel style generator is, yes, they're readily available and they are more inexpensive initially, but with the cost of fuel right now, where's the break-even point to where your dual fuel generator the cost exceeds the cost of a solar generator?
Right.
So that that's a big concern right now. You've got to look at the gallons per hour that generator consumes and multiply that out over a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and see where the break-even point is between solar and dual fuel.
The 49th State asked, hi from Alaska, does Wheaton make triggers for Glock 29 and Glock 40?
We make trigger shoes for them, but we're not doing the complete assemblies right now simply because we cannot get trigger bars for some of the different models like that.
Yeah, Glock parts right now are fairly difficult to get. And
a lot of that stuff, like for the oddball models, the 20s, the 21s, the 29s, the 43s, and some of your Gen 5 stuff, we use Glock trigger bars for those. And we polish those, prep them, go through and tune the trigger bar. And we haven't been able to get those trigger bars from Glock in almost a year.
Hello all, Alex T here. Question, how can a teenager that lives with his parents start prepping if his family isn't big into prepping like you guys?
Well, that's a question that I do get on a regular basis.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of times you do see the need, and sometimes it can even be not just, a child in the home. And I say child, obviously you're not a child, but, it is even a wife or family to get together. One of the big things that I recommend, and it's according to your resources as far as financial, if you can afford, if you're working a part-time job and you can pick up a few, items or do some stuff like that. I mean, that is one way. But one thing that I always recommend is get your mindset right. Start learning things, your fire skills, how to build fires, how to purify water, all those things that are survival related, and just make it a university by going. There's a lot of options and resources out there to be able to do that. And so that, to me, is the number one thing, especially if anybody is low on funds. Listen, I would much rather have someone that is really sharp and knows how to do and manipulate and to be able to survive, have the knowledge, than somebody that has a mass store and then doesn't know how to do it. Yep. And doesn't really know anything. They're just buying stuff and throwing it against the wall. Now, obviously, those supplies are important. By the rule of threes, you have 3 days without water. It's extremely important that you think about water. And I would think more about filtering water than buying water, because you start buying water, you're going to have a lot of excess room you're going to need to put it in. It's fairly inexpensive, but if you can figure out how to filter your water, that is a great way to get at least your water taken care of. And then, of course, 3 weeks without food. So food is important, but water is number one. So just get in there and start learning things about ways to do things. And then, as things start to ramp up, maybe your family may come on board, and then you can kind of get them involved. And that's the best advice I can give you.
QUSMC says, Sootch, have you heard of the bio bags that turn your human waste and food waste into cooking gas in a bag from your backyard?
No, I have not.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. I don't know that I want to be involved in that too much. I might get Sarah Mack to take care of that. Yeah, she just gave me the finger. Yeah, that's methane is methane. I mean, it's
methane
a gas.
Methane. Yep.
And so it is a possibility. But
if you could figure out how to bottle a cow's butt, you could probably run your house on it, but
exactly. Yes.
Joshua Barkley asks, I have a question on the futurability of guns and ammo under the current conditions.
We're all concerned about it. We just got through a major shortage on ammo, and it's starting to come back. But if you start seeing legislation, I'm just going to put this out here, guys. Ammunition it's not down to where it was, but it's lower.
Mm-hmm.
Now is the time to buy it, because if they start pushing legislation, you're going to see ammunition disappear again.
That's right.
So please take my word. You need to go out and get some ammunition. Whatever guns you have, you need to, especially your go-to firearms for self-defense, get some ammunition put back. It is vital at this point.
Especially while it's available right now.
It is available right now. I was in PSA the other day. They had tons. They had pallets of ammunition. Yes, again, and especially certain calibers are more expensive. But a lot of times your 9 and your 223 and even some 22 is getting back down to a medium level.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, now is the time to stock up. Every time I go into Palmetto State, of course, we're sponsored by Fiocchi. We have a lot of ammunition, but that is not for me personal. That's my business ammunition. I don't use that on my personal level. I stock up and buy ammunition separately. And I've always done that, and it's been great. All right.
JD says, question, I am a member of the military CSAR community, and we will be called up in an SHTF. Any recommendations for prepping for my family, knowing I probably won't be there to help them?
That's a tough one. It's funny. A lot of times, and I've read a number of different books with SHTF, and a lot of times that was one thing that people would just abandon their post because they have families. And, you have to think about it. If you think about the Civil War, I mean, soldiers marched off to war and they left their families behind. Get your family as prepared as you can. And I would have some bug out locations for them to go to. Never just bug out. They need to at least think, okay, I have my wife has a sister somewhere or a brother or a family real close by. What is the best way to get out, especially if you're in an urban situation, urban or even suburban situations? You really need to have a plan to evacuate. But, having enough food, water, of course, in a martial law scenario, it actually would be safer than just lawlessness. And that, to me, is what's the scariest. I know a lot of people say martial law, which I'm against martial law, but martial law is going to be a better option than just complete lawlessness for your families. Now, martial law tends to go sideways, and then people get their stuff confiscated. All that's bad news. And so I'm not saying I want that, because I don't. But yeah, if they're calling people up and they're staying in their ranks and they're actually reporting for duty, that's going to be a good thing as far as keeping order. But then again, I would be really concerned about leaving my family, especially if you're going to a different area. So, you just get them prepared as best you can. Hopefully your wife's on board.
And go ahead and start networking with some friends and some neighbors as well. So you've got a really good support community to help your wife and your kids while you're not there.
Winging a Prayer says, do you use the Berkey drops that are listed on their website? I understand it's supposed to keep the slime down, but do you really need them if you're cleaning it properly?
We have not. We don't use it, and we haven't had problems. We've used the Berkey now for 12 years, and we use it every day. One thing I do want to recommend, and Donna, I know we were talking about this last night on Patreon Live, using the Berkey regularly will preserve your filters. Yes, it drains the life of the filter somewhat as you're using it, but each filter is 3,000 gallons of water, so it's quite a bit. We've only had to change our filters out one time, but we have the 4 filters, so we're filtering 12,000 gallons of water. We use it for everything, but one of our guys in our prepper group had a problem where he wasn't using it. He stored his just for that rainy day, but he had run water through it. And then the filter started to disintegrate. But we have not had problems with slime. But I wouldn't go against it. I mean, you might want to do it just as a safeguard.
Well, and also, too, it depends on where your water source is coming from. If you've got tap water right now, you're probably not going to get a lot of slime buildup in there. But if you're having to use alternative water sources from a creek or a pond or something like that to filter through your Berkey, then yes, it probably would be a good idea to have those drops and use those drops just to prevent slime because of the contaminated water that you're filtering.
That's good. That's a good point. Because if you go down to the creek down here and I start pulling out water, it can be slimy.
That's right.
And two, it's gonna shorten the life of your filter by using water that's not clear and not clean.
Ginger Ale Bear asks, any advice on growing potatoes in the South?
You can grow potatoes.
Yeah, we just planted some yesterday, and there's a few ways you can do it. You can do what's called bucket potatoes, where you grow them in a 5-gallon bucket, and you put your potato in, you put some dirt in. As the stem comes up, you just add more dirt, and just build a mound inside the bucket. Once you get it mounded up to the point that you can't put any more dirt on it, you dump it and harvest your potatoes. You can do the same thing in raised beds, and then you can also do the same thing in a regular garden. You just keep mounding dirt until you get it built up to the point to where you want to harvest.
Yeah, mounding the dirt is the most important because it allows those potatoes to be able to grow and to be able to produce. My grandfather used to grow potatoes not far from here, and man, he'd always have a huge crop of potatoes.
Yep. And we do every year. That's one of the biggest things and one of the easiest things there are to grow. Potatoes are a lot easier to grow from what I found in my experience than like corn and stuff. Corn can be kind of finicky if you miss on something with your seed depth, you're watering, too much sun. There's a lot of variables with corn that can cause some issues where potatoes are much simpler to grow.
And very versatile.
That's right.
Very versatile.
Christina G asks, question, what size of solar power would be best for a freezer and what kind?
No, that's a good point.
It's going to vary depending on the wattage of your freezer. That's one of the big things you need to look at is the tag on the freezer itself and see how much power it draws, and then get a solar panel that produces more power than what you're actually drawing. As far as brands, that's one of the things that I'm still researching right now, trying to figure out exactly which one. I've got it narrowed down to about 3 or 4 different ones, and I haven't decided which one of those I'm going to go with yet.
Right. Good.
Fed Up American asks, question, I recently acquired a Firestar M40. Is there any aftermarket sites for me to purchase?
Firestar, man, I hadn't seen one of those in a while. Those are great little guns. Yeah, that's that market. Well, I'll tell you, if you're looking for parts, a lot of times you can go to gunbroker.com. You can go to eBay, which seems really funny, but you can go to eBay and you can find all kind of stuff on eBay. A lot of times I'm buying older guns, and if I need something, I'll go on the Gunbroker or to eBay. Those tend to be some of the best sources because people have used parts that they put on there. Yeah.
And one company that I found that produces a lot of aftermarket sites for older firearms and obsolete firearms are Williams. So you can look at Williams sites or Williams fire sites. They do a lot of fiber optic options for obsolete firearms.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I know they do the old, the Williams has a bunch of different sites, for the old lever action.
That's right. That's right. And they do a lot of stuff for handguns as well.
Also, Numeric Arms. Numeric Arms typically has a lot of parts and things like that. And then gun shows are also a great place to be able to look. Sometimes you can come across something, but it's hit or miss.
And worst case, you can always get a gunsmith to just make you a custom set of sights for it.
There you go.
Man asks, I wanted to put up solar panels, but I live alone out in the desert and I'm afraid of theft. Are there panels that can be easily disassembled when I leave town?
Yeah, I mean, we have one of the humblest, and this is just a generator. It's a humbless generator, and all the panels fold up. You can put them in your garage. That's what we do. They have covers for them, or you can, and then you can take them down. But there are solar panels that you can just mount. You don't have to leave them up. You can move them. So, just look into some research on that. Building a permanent solar panel, is just out there. And yes, they can be stolen. So, especially if things start to get a little squirrely. But yeah, I would look at maybe some portable solar panels, and there are a lot of different options out there.
Yeah, and that's where the ones that I'm doing for my deep freezers, I'm putting those up on my roof, and everything will be bolted together, bolted to the roof. Not going to say that someone couldn't steal it, but it's going to require a lot of effort to climb up there, unbolt everything, and take everything down.
Right. And two, one thing about having portable solar panels is that you may be getting sun from here. You may, of course, you're in Arizona, you probably have this problem, but moving those panels to different places to be able to get the best, most efficient direct sunlight you can get.
Also, non-gun or ammo weapons. What would you use? Example: slingshot or bows and arrows, etc.
A bow would be one.
Anything that's going to allow you to extend your standoff range. Crossbows, compound bows, those are probably going to be your furthest standoff distance non-firearm that you can get.
But also one thing to think about is pepper spray. Pepper spray, to me, especially if you're being attacked by a group, if you have a group, that was one thing that really came to me was when all this stuff was going on, a lot of the civil unrest in some of the cities, is a gun really wouldn't do you that much good.
Yep.
Somebody will take it away from you, even if you get a couple of them. But with pepper spray, you can diffuse the situation. But one thing is, guys, is and I have a video about this. I did it years ago. We had 4 guys come up to our house, and I didn't know it at the time. There was only one standing at the door, but we had kind of a confrontation. It was like 2 a.m, and he's wanting to come in, wanting to know, said somebody was there that he thought he was supposed to meet, and I had to have a debate with him. And finally, when I pulled my gun out, which I just stepped back, I didn't point it at him. I just stepped back, and he kind of hem-hawed a little bit, and then he left. But then when I looked, there were 3 other guys in the car. And so you got to think about, maybe a baseball bat or a golf club or something like that. 4 men, they can take that from you and beat you with it.
Yep.
So having something like Robbie said, that is definitely something, a standoff. Slingshot could be possible if you can get really good at it. David was good at it with Goliath.
That's right.
We don't live with the sling. But edged weapons, things like that, you're starting to get into
hand to hand.
Yeah.
Close.
And it gets kind of 50-50.
Slip Bobber Willie asks, will a Berkey or Sawyer water filter out water once people start dumping waste in it?
Yeah, it will. Now it'll clog up quicker. It'll reduce the life of the filter. And one thing you want to do is, no matter what, you could go to a stream and it looked beautifully clear, and then take that water and pour it, pre-filter it, with some kind of cheesecloth or something, even regular, cloth, and just run it through there to get all the sediment out, because you want as little sediment as possible when you get it into that. When you pour it into your Berkey, the cleaner it is, the longer your filter life is going to be. So
I always say you never know what's upstream.
No,
that's one of my sayings that I try and live by when it comes to water. You never know what's upstream. So strain it, pre-filter it, get it as clear and clean as you can. I like to strain into white plastic 5-gallon buckets, because it's really easy to see if there's sediment in the water, if the water is still murky and cloudy, and you can pre-strain it several times before you ever go into your Berkey. And that way you get as clean and clear water as you can, which is going to help preserve your filters and make those last longer.
Well, the old way to filter water was to take charcoal, and you can crush it up, charcoal, take sand, rocks, grass, pour it over it, and then have some kind of filter system, like a cheesecloth filter system, where it goes through. And, you may do it 4 or 5 times to get that through, to get it clear. So that is one way you can naturally clean your water. You can actually drink it once it's gone through that process a number of times. But, that way you can get it to where it's at least drinkable. I had a buddy of mine, he was canoeing. In fact, my brother, he was canoeing up in North Carolina, and he came around this one corner, and there was a dead cow in the river, and it had been there for a while. It was already starting to decompose. So everything south of that or going downstream is nasty.
Yep.
But, you can use that water if you have to, but you just need to filter it. The one thing about filtering water, and water being so important, is you don't want to drink water that will make you sick, because then you're sick in an emergency situation, and that's one of the big things you don't want.
Linda Carter says, question, any ideas on the motive behind these manufactured shortages? What is the end game?
Well, one of the problems is they're trying to push for this new Green Deal. So there's a lot of legislation. There's a lot of incentives being given to some companies like solar. I mean, and that's one thing right now. The time to get solar is now, and to capitalize on it. But there's a lot of incentives there, and there are a lot of takeaways from other traditional ways, considering, they've been closing pipelines like crazy, and yet we have our fuel, we have our fuel shortage, we have the prices going up. So it's definitely manufactured. And if you know that, you can see where, the next step is. One of the big things with transportation is the gas prices are going to make everything go up. Everything's going to go up. So even though we're having shortages, which make things go up because of supply and demand, now you're having fuel shortages to put on top of that.
Well, and the thing is, even if we switched tomorrow to 100% green energy, electric vehicles, solar power for our house, wind-fired electricity, our power grid and our infrastructure is not set up to be able to support that right now. It would take decades to get to the point to where our power grid would be able to support an all-electric economy.
I mean, it's great that Teslas, we see Teslas all the time. It's great what they're doing. I mean, but the funny thing is the power that it causes to generate that is just as much as the fuel that's being expended by regular cars. It's all a bunch of bull crap is what it is. But, it'd be nice to get into cleaner energy. And like Robbie said, it's going to take decades to get to that point. They're trying to force it in a real short period of time, and it will not work.
No.
And, there's a lot of money that's involved in this. I can tell you right now. That's why these people that go into Congress are making $175,000 a year, and they're buying $6 million homes. I mean, it's a bunch of bull crap.
Your friend in Vermont asked, will bags of rice and beans be okay just stored as is in a good grade food grade bucket?
Actually, yes. You can do that. There was a guy a few years ago that had stored buckets of rice and beans in Idaho out in a metal shed, and it was extreme hot, extreme cold, and it was there for years. And he pulled it out. Now it'll discolor. You will lose some of your nutrition. It's not going to be optimum, but you can do it. Now, I would highly recommend you putting it in Mylar bags. They're fairly inexpensive. Mylar bags, take a couple of oxygen absorbers, drop it in, seal it up. Because one of the problems you're going to have is possible insects getting there.
We vacuum seal all of ours.
Yeah, vacuum seal.
We vacuum seal our rice. We vacuum seal our beans. And one of the big reasons why, not only because it pulls all the oxygen out of the bag and protects it, but it makes it, we can store a larger volume in a smaller area when it sucks all that air out. So it allows us to be able to store more food.
But one thing we did a few years ago, went down to a Mormon cannery and loaded up. I mean, we loaded up, and they put them in number 10 cans. They're in boxes. They have oxygen absorbers. I mean, they are sealed for 30 years. So, taking the more you do, the longer you're going to extend your life. Yes, you can just throw rice in a bucket and put a lid on it. I mean, Orientals have been doing that for a long time, but it does degrade the nutritional value, and that's really the main thing.
German Prepper asked, question, hi guys, I recently put out a video on a 7-point prepper's creed. What would be your top rules / guidelines for preppers to live by?
Well, first thing that I do personally is you have to have the right mindset. I mean, the thing is, if you're getting into prepping, it's because of your family. You got to have the right motivation. And so, we have our family. I care about my family, whether my wife was on board, which she is, but whether she was or not would not stop me from taking care of my family. That is my number one goal. And so with that is self-defense, medical, all these things. I base all of my preps on the rule of threes. It is all throughout when I'm building a bug out bag or I'm doing stuff at home. And the rule of threes is 3 minutes without air is how long you can live. 3 hours in extreme harsh conditions, hot or cold, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, medical and self-defense flow in between.
That's right.
And so if you can set your basis up with that, that gets you started. So the first thing you do is you start putting your priorities in order. And those are the number one priorities, number one. But now the third thing is your community. Listen, lone wolf will get you killed. And I know I've had a couple of people to send me messages fussing at me about that. And yeah, they may be Rambo, but not everybody's Rambo. And so make sure that you're building a community. It may be just some friends. Hopefully it's your neighbors. And you don't have to necessarily get them in a prepper group, but you at least need to build good relations. Because when things start to go south, these people are going to all of a sudden go, oh, and two, keep your lips sealed. Don't talk about what you have. I mean, you can be a prepper and they kind of know you do some things, but don't let everybody know what you do. But relationships to me are vital, vital. So getting those relationships, and then, having a place, having your supplies ready, that if you do need to leave, which is a last ditch effort, if you have to bug out, you're a glorified refugee, you're vulnerable out on the road, that is only because you have no other choice, because you can't take all your supplies. Plan to bunker in. Now, if you live in an apartment in New York City, plan to bug out. But have a destination. Have a destination. And so those are just some of the things that we kind of live by here. And they're very important. And then they extend past that, but those are number one. And two, guys, don't get involved with a group or have friends around that have hot tempers, that have huge egos, that want to be, I was in the military and blah, blah, blah. Well, there were truck drivers and they're cooks, they're guys that, swab the deck. I mean, just because somebody's in the military doesn't give them a license that they are qualified. Now, they're typically more qualified than a lot of people because they've been in that environment. But, the thing is, these egomaniacs that are going around, I do not get involved with those kind of people, because they will lead you down the wrong path.
Ginger Beer asks, is it smart to have translators in a group for deaf or nonverbal people as much as it would other languages, as it is world languages, Robbie or Don?
It depends on your particular situation. If you have people around you that are hearing impaired or vision impaired, then absolutely yes. Me personally, I think being able to translate world languages is much more important, because the odds of you running into someone from another country that speaks a different language is probably a lot higher probability than you running into an individual that is deaf or blind. So for me, the countries that border ours, being able to speak their languages, or countries that we may have some issues with, being able to speak or understand their languages are much more important to me than being able to speak and understand or communicate with someone that is hearing impaired or vision impaired.
It's funny because obviously here in the U.S., learning Spanish is definitely a smart move, because there are a lot of Hispanic people here, but there are a lot of other people coming across that border. And typically in Canada with the French, a lot of them speak English already. Right. And two, if you're on the border of that country, and I think that was a big one. If you're in Europe, it's a whole nother deal. Probably Arabic would be a good language for you to understand. Yeah. The funny thing is, China, that from grade school on, they are learning English. So, as far as
it's a national law in China that, back in the early 2000s, they passed a law that every person in that country had to learn English. And, it's not on the level that, we can sit here and talk, but at least they have a conversational understanding of the language to where they can communicate with people in English and understand what English speaking people are saying.
Yeah. And a lot of Spanish people can speak English, obviously, but.
Mr. Landfill says, question, I have family members that refuse to prep, and they say, I will just come to your house and eat your food. Do I risk my family's future and let them in? They are family.
This is what I told my family or my wife's family. My family's pretty much, we just all have been preppers for a long time, they want to talk the talk about it. They're just talking about it. Oh, look at this, look at that. But they weren't doing anything. And I finally, one day, I told my wife, she goes, we really need to talk to, she has 3 brothers. And I said, look, I'm not talking to them again. I've talked to them enough. I'm done. Well, she brought it up anyway at a family dinner. And so I sat there and I finally just said, let me just say this, guys. We love you. We love you, your family. We care for you. We'd do anything for you. I said, but with what's going on and with what's coming up, I said, we are preparing to take care of our family. And I said, you're talking the talk, but you're not doing anything. I said, so I'll help with your kids, but don't come to me for food. I just told them up front. The next day, I started getting pictures on text of them going out and buying food. And one of her brothers actually turned into a full-blown prepper. He's my buddy. But, the thing is, you've got to let people know that is not the option. Yep. Now, on the other hand, and I'll let you go. On the other hand, when, is people that there's good people, You've also got to think, how am I going to help? What can I do to help people? You want to have something. One thing my wife and I do, we put 10%, we designate 10% of our preps to go to help people. Not necessarily come to our house, but to maybe have a soup kitchen up the street or do something like that, and just to help people. But you have to weigh out your options there, because if they target where you are, you can have a problem with them coming to take your stuff. But, with family, you need to sit down with them and say, look, you see what's going on. It's not right for you to come here and take our supplies.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you have to think about your family first. What are you going to need to be able to provide for your family, and to provide a comfort and a level that is sustainable for X number of days, weeks, months, years for your family. And at that point, once you've set that limit for what you need to provide for your family, then you can look at what you have left to be able to share with others. But providing for your family is going to be your main priority first and foremost. And then anything that's left over, like Don was saying, anything that's left over, you can use to help others.
Now, one thing I will say is people are your number one asset. People. It's more important even than them bringing a big truckload of food, because you need people together. And that's one of the reasons why I'm big about prepper groups or MAGs, mutual assistant groups. People come together. They can work in the garden. They can help repairs. They can clean up. They can have security. I mean, there's a lot of things. So if you do have your brother shows up with his family and they're like, we don't have anything, you're not going to turn your brother away. You love your brother. You do anything for him. So now all of a sudden you're going to say, I'm not feeding you. And he's sitting there, hadn't eaten in days. Of course you're going to feed him. But then take him and say, okay, we need this, we need that. Earn your food, earn your keep.
Right. They're going to be contributors at that point to the group, to the family. They're going to be either working in the garden or planting things or repairing things, and they're going to be
firewood,
right? Whatever is needed. That's right.
But security is probably one of the biggest.
It is going to be one of the biggest for sure.
Joe Texas asked, is 24,000 rounds enough?
No. There's no such thing as enough. Always buy more.
I like that. Hey, you're in Texas. You kidding? No. I mean, 24,000 rounds is a lot of ammunition. But I would say amateur, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Bump those rookie numbers up.
No, that's a good start. That's I mean, good night. But listen, if you got to shoot that many rounds, you're done. I mean, you're done. You're in Ukraine or something.
Well, listen. He may have a big family. He may have a lot of people. He may have a ranch. He may have a lot of people. May have a lot of people there that he's supporting. A lot of firearms that have to go around to everyone. So that. It sounds like a lot, but when you've got a group of people that you're providing for, not just yourself, that ammunition can dwindle very quickly.
Well, let's say you have 10 people. Yep, that's only 2,000 rounds, a little over 2,000 rounds.
2,400 apiece.
Yep. So, and that can go really fast. We just went through that going up to tactical response.
Exactly.
Not 24,000, but over 1,000 each.
Christopher says, can you offer any advice on starting a prepper group in a large urban area?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. One thing, we have a good prepper. We have a nice prepper group. And one of the things we do, we build on relationships. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things that I would say is relationships. We have a friend of mine. He moved down from Minnesota, he and his wife, out of Minneapolis the week that George Floyd was killed. I mean, they got out of there like boom.
Their timing was perfect.
Yep. It was a God thing. But they came down, and one of the things he told me, he goes, man, we can't wait to have some block parties and do some stuff and get to know these people. And honestly, I was thinking, these people aren't going to respond to that. Let me tell you, he has Wiener Wednesday where he gathers all of his friends. All these people come over in the neighborhood. He has Thirsty Thursday. He's doing these things. He has built some incredible relationships with these people. And so now they're starting to go, oh, I need a gun. Oh, I need to put some food back. Mm-hmm. Oh. So, if you're one of those people that's out there making friends and building it up, and see, like for a prepper group, to me, the number one thing is trust. And so if I'm building a relationship with people, when everybody first kind of got started, it was like, okay, we're trying to figure out all the details. Then it went into relationships. And then it's like, I'll die for you, man. I mean, it's not
Yep.
like, I'm willing to die for you. You're my friend. I'm going to do what it takes. So build relationships. And that is the biggest thing. And then, you can but don't do this. Man, it's the end of the world. We need to get some food. You got food together. We got to get this, got to get that. And people go, whoa. But, just get around people and speak. Just say, man, gas prices are going up. Food prices are going up. They're talking about scarcity. And then let them say something. If they don't say anything, then move to the next one.
Right.
And it can come together.
It's an easy way to fish.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to fish and get some information from somebody, see where they are, see where their mindset is. And then you can make a determination from there whether you want to continue a conversation with them or just kind of step away and talk to somebody else. Churches are a great place to meet people that are very like-minded. Like Don was saying, block parties, get to know your neighbors. They're the ones that live around you. They're the ones that live in your immediate community. Get to know your neighbors, feel your neighbors out, find out where they are, where their mindset is. There may be some neighbors that you have that you don't know that are very like-minded that you've just never had that conversation with.
Because they don't want to say it.
Right, exactly. So, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to talk to people. So that's some of the best advice I could give.
That's right. That's a great examples.
Gary Hernandez, Self-Defense and Urban Survival, asks, hello, question. What is your thoughts about bugging out in a boat if you live on the ocean or river? And what would you bring on the boat? Thank you.
Well, a boat would give you a little bit of extension, from other people. And typically you have capacity to carry things. The only downside is if somebody wants to take some shots at you, you're just kind of out there as a target. But in fact, I think it was in Going Home. That was one of the things they've had boats, and once in a while, some people would just start shooting, at them just to be ugly. But I mean, just like you would in a car. I mean, you have your food, your supplies, your rule of threes, making sure you have the things you need to be able to store it. It's according to what size boat you have. If you have a John boat, it's going to be very limited. If you have something that's like a pontoon boat, you could possibly carry quite a bit of food and your supplies.
And one of the big things you're going to run into with a boat, like with any other vehicle, unless it's a sailboat, is enough fuel to be able to power that boat, power your generators, power your engines. That's always going to be your biggest issue, is being able to store enough fuel on that boat.
Right. So, there are some advantages though, because you can get on a boat and instead of hitting the freeway, which is going to be jam clogged up, you get in a boat and you circle around that. And then you can, even if you have to evacuate the boat, at least you can have a way around, different possibilities.
And if that's something that you're seriously considering, I would really look at some solar options for providing power for the boat itself.
Oh yeah. You're out there on the water.
That's right. That way you've got constant power. You're not having to burn your fuel to run a generator. You can power your refrigerator. You can power your lights. You can power things inside the boat off of some solar panels instead of trying to store enough fuel to be able to run all of that.
I'll tell you though, that's interesting. I mean, that is interesting. I haven't really considered that too much. So, sounds like a good option.
A lot of thought to put into it. Cooking your food. How are you going to cook your food? Are you plan on using propane, or there's a lot of considerations with that. A lot of good with it, but a lot of question marks as well.
Old Man River asks, question, what if you don't have any water filters for clean water? I'm converting an old pressure cooker to make distilled water. What is your opinion?
Oh yeah. I mean, there are ways. I mean, people have been doing this for a long time. Boiling water, you
can always boil it. That's right.
The one problem, and using bleach can take care of a lot of contaminants. The only thing about that kind of water is you've got taste and smell. But I mean, it's still drinkable, and in a bad situation, you may be eating grub worms already. So it doesn't really matter. You're like, whatever's water. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways to do it. Listen, this is the one thing about being prepped. You can survive. You can figure out a way to survive. You can do whatever, typically. I mean, unless it's really bad. But the more that you prep, the less third world you are, right? So let's say I'm storing up food. I've got a Berkey water filtration system. I've got some supplies and things. I've got a generator. I've got solar power. That's just going to keep you from going down all the way to field craft. So, the more you prep, the less you're going to have to go to that. And honestly, at some point, if it was an extended period of time, we could all be at that point. But by the time we get there, we're going to be knowledgeable. We're going to be learning and learning and learning. So the more you prep, the less third world you're going to be in a hurry.
Keith Mead asked, I have a water catchment, but this roof is shingles. Should I be concerned?
You should filter it. Yeah, I mean, that's what ours are. And it's the same thing. And those little rocks and all that get in there. One of the things about a rain catchment is you want to have a way to clean it. Sometimes, they have these sealed 50-gallon drums or whatever, and it's got like the bung hole, and you put and they're easy to set up, but they're hard to clean.
Mm-hmm.
And so having some way, a buddy of mine just bought one actually that has like one of those band lids, so he can undo it and he can clean it out if he wants and put it back in. But that sediment it's not going to be good for you. I mean, you're going to need to filter it. And however you do that, there's one thing about rainwater though. I know when we use ours, you turn that faucet on, it's like it smells so good. It's so clean. It's just real water smell.
Chip Sutherland asked question, have you watched 2000 Mules yet?
No, I've been trying to watch it. They took it down off YouTube.
Really?
It was on YouTube and they took it down. So I'm looking to watch that. I think that
I've
is
got a link to it that is on another source. I'll send it to you.
Okay. We may just put that up somewhere so you guys can watch it. But yeah, that's the thing is we're not going to get political on here today because this is about survival. But knowing what's going on will help you. To be forewarned is to be forearmed and knowing what's going on.
Brian 2 asked, y'all's suggestion on a subcompact pistol, I should consider looking to buy one for carry.
I'll tell you, the SIG P365 is probably one of the best. It's just a great pistol, the size. But if you're on a budget, there's the Taurus GX4. That is a great gun. In fact, there are some qualities on that gun that surpass a lot of the others, which is funny. Taurus has really stepped it up, and the prices are very, very reasonable. Or then you could go with a Ruger, one of their Max 9s. That's a really nice, affordable pistol. But then the Springfield Armory, Hellcat, those are subcompacts that are micro 9s. So they have like 10+1 and more mag capacity, and yet they're a very small concealable package.
Yep.
But
I've got bigger hands, and I prefer the G43X. It's got a little longer grip. It really fits my hand well. And you can get either the factory 10-round magazines or the aftermarket 15-round magazines for it.
Yeah, the Shield Arms magazines, which for the Glock 43, they just came out with the Z9 magazine. This is a 9-round capacity for your G43. In fact, I'm putting up a review on that today. But there are a lot of great options out there, and it's according to budget. If budget's a problem, an issue, then look at Ruger or look at the Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to just get something that's solid, the Kimber Micro, Mako. The Kimber Mako is a great gun, but it's on the higher end.
Right.
But I would definitely look at. There's a lot of different choices on the market.
Really
it's really great. It's really great.
Mary Jane asked, question, not worried about people too much where I live, but there are a lot of bears in the area. How do I keep them at bay in a grid down situation? Thank you for your information.
Bear spray. It's just a pepper spray that just fogs out. And a lot of people carry that in the woods to repel bears. And bears are extremely sensitive with their nose, so it really hits them hard. But that would be number one if you didn't want to actually have to shoot them. But on the other hand, I would probably have something that was capable of taking care of that if you needed it. And that would be, like a 44 Magnum, 10 millimeter pistol, 45-70 rifle, or even a 44 Magnum rifle, or
12 gauge with slugs works real well.
Yeah. So I would have a backup of something like that would be a little bit more. I mean, I think in Jurassic Park, he was carrying around a 45-70 lever action. That was against a T-Rex. So,
Lucky 13 driver asked, is reverse osmosis water systems as good as the Berkey?
They're very good. It's just, I haven't done a lot of research. I have some friends that have done it, and they really like it. So, it's just one of those things to look into it. I don't know that it's as good as the Berkey. The Berkey is really incredible. And that's what we've chosen. But reverse osmosis, I've heard a lot of good things about it. I don't have a lot of experience except knowing that a lot of testimonies that it's good to go. Okay, we're getting down to time now. We're going to take a couple more questions, but before we get finished, I just want to mention Sportsman's Guide, and we really do appreciate those guys. It's a $20 off every $100 or more purchase. That's 20% off if you're ordering $100. And of course, like Robbie likes to bring in, if you get a member of their buyers club, you get free shipping. So and a better price. So it's just a great resource. Tons of military surplus from around the world. I mean, all kind of stuff. And that's a great resource for prepping, because you're out there, you go to REI and you're going to spend $1,000. You get military surplus, you may spend $200.
That's right. Yeah, it's a significant savings.
All right.
Paul McDonald asks, my parents are senior citizens in assisted living, so bug out is just not an option. Any suggestions or thoughts?
My parents live right next door, and they are both in their 80. Well, my mom turns 80 this year. My dad's going to be 82 this year. And there is no way that they're going to bug out anywhere. I mean, they get around fine, but the bugging out is not an option. So, and I don't know how close your parents are to you. That could be an option, be a situation as well. And the condition they're in. Sometimes, they may be bedridden. So, I don't know. It's according if you have a family and you have to make some decisions, and that's the sad thing. For us, I mean, if we were overrun or somebody attacked or a house caught on fire or whatever, we'd have to leave, but it would be a real hardship on my parents. So we just have to. That's a tough one. I think the situation will dictate. What do you think? Because you have one.
I'm in a very similar situation as you. So that's one thing that we kind of plan for with medications that we keep on hand that my mom would need, oxygen generator that we keep on hand that she would need, as well as extra food. So, the big thing is what are their immediate needs to provide a quality of life for them that you need to go ahead and start storing up and stocking up now for bunkering in. That way, if it comes to that, you've got those supplies on hand.
300 Warriors asked question. Any advice for prepping for climate cooling?
Nope.
I would say, plan for just like you were living in a cold weather environment. Have the clothing that you'll need for it, the supplies you'll need for it for living in cold weather environments. Would be the biggest thing that I would recommend. And
it's according to where you live. If you live in Canada, you probably want to have more of for us, we're in South Carolina. I'm not saying that there's nothing can happen, but yeah, I agree 100% with what Robbie said.
She Loves Cam asked question. Do you see any value in learning to fast? Many people have fasted on water alone for way more than 3 weeks. It's a discipline that may help.
I do that. Let me just say this. One of the problems is that in a grid down situation, you're going to be expending a lot of energy, and fasting, it might be right. It might be okay if you're going to be in a really safe area where you don't have to worry about, and you've got supplies. But the one thing about fasting is it does take a toll on your energy. And so when you're fasting, it's not when you go out and cut wood.
Right.
So, that there's some definite, and there's just forced fasting because you just don't have anything to eat. But that's one of the problems with fasting is that it's going to put you at a disadvantage physically to be able to exert a lot of energy. And that's one of the things about food. Yeah, you can live 3 weeks without food. Well, you can live longer than that, but once 3 weeks, you're going to start having some real issues unless you're doing it in the right way. And fasting sometimes, I mean, Christ himself fasted for 40 days, but he wasn't out splitting wood and cutting trees and doing stuff. But yeah, that's going to be the biggest issue, but you're going to need calories. So, if you're not eating, you're not getting calories, you're going to start losing energy. And that can be a problem. And then if something happens to where you have some kind of aggressor, that could even be more of a problematic.
Jason D asked question. How about an episode for SHTF comm kits, ham radio, GMRS, etc., and developing a PACE system around that? Thanks. Love what y'all do.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, PACE actually comes from a military term, acronym with communications.
Right.
So that's where it actually comes from. Yeah, I mean, obviously, ham radios to me are really important to have. We have a number of ham operators in our group, and we have ham radios. I think that's probably the most important. Second is having your small little handheld radios, your GMRS radios. That is great for security. One thing you don't want is you have a security team and you're messing with your phone. You don't want to do that. So you want to have some kind of way to have direct communication, earbuds, things like that. And that's one of the biggest ways, or just line of sight communication, but it is limited. CBs could be fine for, certain applications. Satellite radio, satellite system, satellite phones. There's a lot of different options, but yeah, I mean, that's something that we've always thought about doing. I did something about that years ago, and it was one of my buddies, Mr. Hammond Prepper, and he has a fantastic, I mean, his ham shack is like this. It looks like on a Navy ship. I mean, he's got all the stuff. So, and he has antennas running all through the beams of his house, and he can talk to people in Sweden and, and all that. But yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things. Cell phones are not going to be reliable. Okay, it's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. We really appreciate Robbie for being here. A lot of great stuff, Robbie. I really appreciate a lot of the insight and a lot of the answers that you gave. And also for Sarah Mack for going through the questions. And guys, there's a lot of questions, so sometimes your question might get missed. But we try to get as many as we can. And just hope that it helps you to be better prepared, because the better my neighbor's prepared, the better I'm prepared. And, making sure right now, guys, seriously, y'all need to start thinking about it and just doing something. If you just go to the store and pick up 2 or 3 cans of beans, you're better prepared than you were the day before. So you don't have to go full on hog wild, but consistency. And it'll get you where you're going. Next week, we will be on the Sootch channel doing live, so we will not be here next week. So if you want to come tune in, we'll just be on the Sootch channel, same time, same bat channel, like I said. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.